So we lined up the secondary and threw a belt on there. We also bled the brakes. I forgot to turn the camera on, but it wasn't that exciting. For some reason the oil had leaked out of the brake reservoir up here. And so it was a matter of putting brake oil in and loosening the set screw down on the, or the little bleeder valve down on the brake caliper, and getting the air out and getting some more oil in. Now I don't know where the oil went, the brake fluid, so a little bit concerned, but we have good brakes now. You'll recall that I stole the improved clutch guard off this chassis last year for the WD-40 oval racer, so we're going to rivet this back on. Now they must have used small rivets because the holes aren't 3/16, so I'm going to drill 4 of these. I don't think we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, so we'll drill out 4 and we'll rivet that back on. Just drilling it out to 3/16. The old Craftsman drill chuck is worn out so much it doesn't grip anymore. Rambo's got nothing on me. Okay. I've always been a firm believer that any players can use some help from Honda. This is just some degreaser. Right, there's trouble in paradise. We took the TX440 project out for a drive. It was terribly slow and doggy, flooding very, very rich. And since I built this motor, I'm more and more concerned that the engine doesn't really turn over very smoothly. Now my current hope is that one of the old corks in the crankshaft weight came out and is piled up in the crank. Still have good compression, it still starts relatively well, but it's hard to turn over, harder than a TX440 should be, especially with a chrome cylinder. And running rich, I did find that one of the air adjust screws on the mag carburetor had fallen out. I guess the little spring wasn't in there to hold it. So anyway, we're going to tear the top end off the motor and probably pull the cylinders and see if we can see what is seized up in there, or seizing up. Maybe we have a bad crankshaft bearing, but anyway, trouble in paradise, like I said. Still something wrong in there. I loosened the 4 or the 8 bolts that hold the cylinders to the block, and I took the PTO cylinder off, and the engine turned over a lot better. And I examined this cylinder, lubed it, looked at the piston. I don't see anything restricting that movement. And now I put it back on and we turn over just like a TX should. So unless we had a little piece of gasket material, maybe, I made my own base gasket, so that is probably what was wrong. Anyway, we'll bolt it back together and see what happens. I'm a little perplexed at this point, but I'm pleasantly pleased. Okay, so the mystery continues. When I tighten this cylinder down on the base nuts, it gets heavy to turn. And when I loosen it off just a little bit, it turns better. When I loosen it off a lot, it turns the same. So there's something misaligned with this cylinder. So we're going to pull that cylinder again and look at the base gasket area to see if we don't have an imperfection. Maybe it's been dropped or something, but we have hope that we can align this cylinder. I'm hoping, because it really is like new, so we'd like to use it. So this is indeed a mystery. So what I'm going to try here is I've colored up the piston with felt marker and removed the ring, cleaned it. And I'm going to put the cylinder back on, turn it over, take it off, see if I've got a scrape mark or some imperfection causing the restriction. Then we'll put it back on and torque it and play with that. Maybe we'll get a clue. Yeah, kind of a weird one. Maybe I could just run it without the piston ring. Okay, I do see a track. We'll move the camera in. I do see a track right there near the intake port. That could be a sharp edge on the intake port. Maybe is causing our issue. I also see a general smearing. A little bit hard to see in the light we have. General smearing right here. Maybe we just have to put a new piston in. So I think I've figured it out. If you look very carefully at that piston, I think the rod is bent and that piston is tipped out this way a wee bit. Did some comparing and measuring. When you put it to bottom dead center, the skirt on the PTO side hits before there, so it's, I've never had this happen, and I suspect that it happened when I was firmly hammering the piston pin in, the wrist pin, and tweaked that rod a little bit. Now I do have another bottom end I can use here, and maybe we can change that rod sometime, but I suppose that's what happened. I'm a little embarrassed about that, or quite embarrassed, but that's a first for me. Anyway, the lesson here is don't bang on your pistons. Find a way to push the pin in. But we'll take it apart and take the engine out and see if that is indeed the case. But it really, really looks to me as though it's bent. So this motor looks the same as what we put in here, but it has indeed been all changed, the different bottom end. We do indeed have what I think is a bent rod in this block here. Now it might have been like that, or it might have been as a result of me hammering on it. I have had to tap wrist pins in and with no ill effects before, or to date, over quite a few years, so I'm a little surprised, but maybe I bent it. Anyway, we're going to take that apart and see if we can't press it apart and put another rod on there. I probably have some. But we did get the sled out on the snow, and it actually starts well, but it's either on or off. It goes like hell or it falls on its face. So I think I've got a fuel delivery issue, and could be that little bitty fuel filter there, or it could be the suction line in the tank. So we're going to take a quick look at that and then punt this project aside. I had a trailer load of 4 small sleds to fix up for a guy come in yesterday, and we're sort of running out of time between now and Christmas. So anyway, we're going to play with the fuel delivery system and then put this thing outside and get the next one in to thaw out. Now if we carefully, gingerly pull this out of the suction line out of the tank, the weight screen looks intact, and without tugging too hard, the fuel line, as I said, this sled had excellent old fuel line on it. Oh, we just pulled it off. There. So now we got a job. We'll have to thread the bung out of the tank and repair that. So I had promised that I'd change this fuel line here, so we'll go ahead and do that. I don't know how much fuel is in this tank, so possibly it'll run out when we pull the lines off. I'm not sure why there's a hose clamp on this fitting, but been problems in the past, I suppose. Nothing wrong there. Now this seems like pretty flexible fuel line. It'll probably stay somewhat flexible in the cold. So all we're going to do is cut a piece off here and give the barb fitting something new to grip onto. There. Probably do the same at the other end, which reduces our length of our pickup line a little bit, but there. I don't know, can't see anything going on there. So I think we'll splurge just about Christmas here. We'll give the sled a new fuel filter. There. And we'll be able to see through this one pretty good. So possibly the other one you could blow through it easily, so I don't think it's given any issue. I also noticed that this fuel line with the small barbs on the old carbs weren't very tight really, and we don't need to be leaking gas and spraying it on our belts and so forth, so we got a couple. These are maybe too tight, these clamps. That's much better. I wish I had left myself a little more slack on these fuel lines. I guess we can change it.